Picture this. It's the spring of 1945. Germany is in absolute ruins. The 12-year dream of a 1,000-year Reich? Yeah, it's completely collapsed into a nightmare. But you have to understand, this wasn't just a military loss. It was a moral catastrophe. And to really get how it all ended, we have to start with a conversation, a terrifying one, overheard by an 11-year-old boy. So that little boy, his name was Helmuth. And those were the bone-chilling words he heard his own father, a Nazi official, whisper to his mother. The very next day, his dad took him for one last walk, and then went to his office and shot himself. Helmuth was so traumatized, so convinced his mother would poison him next, that he refused to eat a single meal at home for the next 9 years. Helmuth's story, it's this small, heartbreaking window into the sheer terror that was gripping Germany. And it forces all of us, to ask the big question, the one we're here to unpack. How on earth did a nation of poets and thinkers get to this point of total collapse and unimaginable crime? To figure out how Germany got there, we have to rewind. We're going all the way back to the beginning, to the ashes of World War I, and the birth of a brand new republic that, frankly, almost nobody wanted. Okay, so after Germany lost the war in 1918, the winners, the Allies, slapped them with something called the Treaty of Versailles. And let me tell you, the terms were absolutely crushing. Germany was stripped of its colonies, lost 1/10 of its people, and huge parts of its industrial engine were just carved away. Look at this, 75% of its iron deposits, gone. This wasn't just a treaty, it was a public shaming, and the new German government had no choice but to sign it. So this new republic was basically born on fire. From the second it started, it was just hammered by one crisis after another. You go from the humiliation of Versailles in 1919 to money becoming worthless just a few years later. There was just no breathing room, no chance to build anything stable. To pay off its massive war debts, the government just started printing money. More and more and more of it. The result? A disaster called hyperinflation. It's when prices spiral so wildly out of control that your money basically becomes paper. It's worthless. And I'm not exaggerating, this is what it actually looked like. People's life savings wiped out overnight. Their faith in the government, in the whole idea of democracy, it was just shattered. You have to see this as more than an economic crisis. It was a deep psychological wound. So you've got a wrecked economy, a government no one trusts. It's the perfect breeding ground for someone to step in and offer a simple, powerful, and incredibly dangerous alternative. The impact of that economic collapse was politically explosive. I mean, just look at these numbers. Before the Great Depression hit, the Nazi Party was a tiny fringe group, getting a measly 2.6% of the vote in 1928. Then, just 4 years later, with millions out of work and desperate, they're suddenly the biggest party in Germany, with 37% of the vote. The connection between economic pain and political extremism, well, it couldn't be clearer. And that voice belongs to Adolf Hitler. He was an absolutely masterful public speaker who promised everyone exactly what they wanted to hear. He swore he'd rip up that hated treaty, rebuild the economy, make Germany proud again, and, crucially, he gave them someone to blame for all their problems. And once he got a taste of power, Hitler moved with terrifying speed. Seriously, look how fast this happened. January 1933, he's made chancellor. Just 1 month later, the parliament building mysteriously burns down, and he uses it as an excuse to suspend all basic civil rights. By March, he pushes through something called the Enabling Act, which effectively makes him a dictator. In less than 3 months, German democracy was completely dead. So with total control locked down, Hitler and the Nazis started to put their core, twisted ideology into practice, this obsession with creating a racially pure society. The way the Nazis saw the world was terrifyingly simple. They split everyone into 2 groups, the desirable and the undesirable. At the very top, you had these so-called pure, blonde, blue-eyed Aryans. And then there was everyone else, especially Germany's Jewish citizens, but also Roma, Poles, Black people, the disabled. All of them were labeled enemies that had to be eliminated. This wasn't just bigotry, it was a state policy of biological racism. And the way they went about this was just chilling. It wasn't chaotic. It was cold, calculated, and efficient. It happened in 3 distinct stages. First, exclusion. They passed laws to fire Jewish people from their jobs and take away their citizenship. Then came ghettoization, herding them into overcrowded, starving slums. And finally, annihilation. The Holocaust. And here's something really sinister. To hide the sheer horror of what they were doing, the Nazis used this deceptive, clinical language. They never said murder or genocide. Instead, they used these chillingly bland phrases like special treatment or the final solution. It was a language designed to make evil sound like paperwork. And the result of this cold, calculated plan? It's a tragedy on a scale that's almost impossible to fully comprehend. The numbers are just staggering, but even they can't capture the full human loss. While Jewish people were the main target, millions of others, Polish civilians, Roma people, disabled Germans, were also systematically slaughtered. Let's just take a moment and really absorb this one number. 6 million. 6 million Jewish men, women, and children murdered. An entire world of culture, of family, of potential, just erased from existence. Now, this hateful ideology wasn't just pointed inward. Oh no, it fueled this massive, insatiable hunger for conquest. Hitler believed Germany needed living space, and he was perfectly willing to burn the world down to get it. In this timeline here, it really shows you how it all unraveled. 1939, they invade Poland, and boom, World War II kicks off. At first, they had these stunning victories that made them look invincible. But then, in 1941, Hitler makes a fatal, catastrophic mistake. He invades the Soviet Union, opening up a second massive war front. And that one decision? It created a strategic nightmare. Germany was trapped, literally caught in a two-front war. From the West, you have the Allies, the US, the UK, bombing their cities into rubble. And in the East, they were just being bled dry in a brutal ground war against the gigantic Soviet Red Army. They were being crushed from both sides. The fall was just as fast as the rise. Hitler's ambition completely outran his resources. And that grand promise of a new empire that would last 1,000 years, it ended right here, in total ruin after just 12. And that brings us right back to where we started. Back to the spring of 1945, with a whole nation being forced to take a long, hard look in the mirror. So now, when you think back to that conversation Helmuth overheard, it all makes a terrible kind of sense, right? That fear in his father's voice wasn't just about the Allies getting revenge. It was the crushing weight of knowing what they had done, what crimes had been committed in their name. The journey from the shame of Versailles to the horror of Auschwitz was finally over. And all of this leaves us with one final, vital question. The story of Nazi Germany is, above all, a warning. It shows us how economic despair, a hunger for easy answers, and a powerful, charismatic voice can twist something like national pride into murderous hatred. So the real question for all of us is, how do we recognize that line today?